It looked like a short film. The angles were perfect, the lighting eerily cinematic. But what unfolded in front of the lens wasn't fiction. It was a murder. And the woman screaming in the final frame? That was his wife. In the quiet suburb of Maple Hollow, Ohio, a place where mailboxes leaned slightly on dusty front lawns and porch swings creaked under the weight of still summer nights, nothing ever happened. That's what people used to say. Until one day someone pressed play on a video. A video that would change everything. Marcus and Elaine Walker were the kind of couple that seemed plucked from a postcard. He was a high school film teacher, known for his dramatic flair and indie obsession. She was a local art curator, elegant, warm, the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. Together, they were Maple Hollow's definition of creativity and class. To outsiders, their life looked almost too perfect. The curated Instagram posts, the art gallery openings, the short film projects Marcus always seemed to be working on. But inside their two-story Victorian home, the script was different. Much darker. Elaine had confided in a friend that Marcus had become obsessed with filming everything, even private arguments, sometimes when she didn't know he was recording. On September 12, 2022, Elaine didn't show up for work. At first, no one panicked. She was known to take spontaneous trips for gallery sourcing. But by the third day, her phone went dark, her bank account inactive. Her sister called the police. Marcus, oddly calm, told them she had probably run off again, mentioning past mental health struggles. But Elaine had no history of vanishing. And something else felt off. Investigators searched the home. They found cameras. Lots of them. Hidden ones. Some were in plain sight. Others concealed behind bookshelves, inside vent covers, one even tucked into a light fixture. Marcus claimed they were for his new film. He was experimenting, he said. A thriller. But no footage was turned over. It took a tip from a neighbor who heard a strange whirring noise at night, for police to revisit Marcus's garage. That's where they found it, a fully soundproofed room. Padded walls. A director's chair. A mounted red camera system. Tripod. External mics. It wasn't just a hobby setup. It was a studio. And on the hard drives tucked behind false paneling, detectives found hundreds of hours of footage. Arguments. Dinner conversations. Elaine sleeping. Elaine crying. And then a final file marked only with a date, September 12, 22. What they saw has never been released to the public in full. But investigators confirmed the following. Marcus had orchestrated an entire scene. The room lit like a noir film with spotlights and shadows. Elaine was tied to a chair, visibly panicked, her voice trembling. He paced in front of her, delivering monologues about betrayal, love, control. It was theatrical. Scripted. He was playing a part, except this was real. And then, the moment, a sharp movement, a sound, her scream. A cut to black. No body. Just silence. Marcus was arrested hours later, not for murder because there was no body, but for unlawful imprisonment and assault, based on the video. Still, he refused to speak. He claimed it was just performance art. That Elaine had helped write it. That it was all part of the film. The DA knew better. But without a body, the case stalled. Elaine's sister began digging. That's when the pieces started falling into place. This wasn't Marcus's first film. 3 years prior, in another town, he had been investigated after a girlfriend reported psychological abuse and surveillance. No charges were filed, she left town shortly after. An ex-student came forward too, a young woman who'd participated in one of Marcus's private film camps during her senior year. She claimed he tried to cast her in a disturbing domestic thriller, and became enraged when she refused. Again, no proof, no charges. But the pattern was there. The obsession with filming. The controlling behavior. The blurred line between reality and performance. As the investigation continued, a forensics team analyzed audio cues in the video. In the background, a faint drip. A metallic clang. Trains in the distance. Using those clues, cadaver dogs were brought to an abandoned train depot 14 miles outside Maple Hollow. That's when they found Elaine's backpack. Inside it was a cracked phone. On the lock screen, a chilling message typed in the Notes app, never sent. If anyone sees this, he's filming everything. Please don't believe him. DNA evidence confirmed it was hers. But still, no body. And Marcus, still behind bars on lesser charges, began claiming he had memory issues. That Elaine had left him. That maybe she had faked her death. Then just when the case seemed cold again came the twist. An intern at the DA's office was reviewing evidence logs when he noticed something odd. One of the storage drives, the one labeled deleted scenes, hadn't been properly cataloged. When they opened it, they didn't just find footage of Elaine. They found 2 other women. Bound, frightened, speaking names. And one of them was reported missing. In 2018. Suddenly, Marcus Walker wasn't just a grieving husband with a twisted hobby. He might be something else entirely. A serial predator. A killer who made movies of murder. The camera was always rolling. That was Marcus Walker's golden rule. Behind every lens, he wasn't a husband. He wasn't a teacher. He was the director. But now the roles had reversed, and someone else was filming him. The deleted scenes, drive changed everything. 2 women, bound, terrified, whispering for help. One identified as Alyssa Grant, a 24-year-old last seen in 2018 after attending a private film mentorship in Indianapolis, run by none other than Marcus Walker. The other woman's identity remained unknown. Their footage was incomplete, abrupt cuts, disorienting angles like someone trying to erase something, or someone. But forensic analysts recovered enough metadata to place the files within Marcus's timeline. The scenes were unmistakably real. And terrifying. Marcus was no longer just a suspect. He was the lead in an unfolding horror, one of his own making. The discovery ignited a media storm. The director of death, headlines screamed. Real-life horror filmmaker on trial. Prosecutors reclassified the case. With overwhelming digital evidence and the implication of multiple victims, Marcus was now charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and obstruction of justice. The trial was set for February 2024. Marcus pled not guilty. His defense. It was all a film project. No one died. Elaine walked away from the role. He maintained that Alyssa and the unknown woman were actresses, method performers, who never understood the final vision. He offered no names. No contact info. Nothing to verify they'd ever left. But the jury didn't need convincing. They had the footage. Elaine's terror. The broken messages. The scenes that blurred too far into violence. The camera told the truth Marcus wouldn't. Still, there was one gaping hole. No bodies had been found. Detectives returned to the abandoned train depot where Elaine's backpack was found. This time with ground-penetrating radar and specialized cadaver dogs. Days turned into weeks. Nothing. Then a retired railroad worker stepped forward. Said he remembered Marcus, or someone fitting his description, accessing an underground utility tunnel nearby in 2022, carrying a dolly and 3 sealed containers. It was enough to get a warrant. On March 11, 2024, search crews unearthed a sealed drainage hatch beneath the depot's foundation. What they found inside was gruesome. 3 containers. Each holding human remains. Each wrapped in plastic. One was confirmed to be Elaine Walker. Another, Alyssa Grant. The third? Still unknown. Jane Doe. Now Marcus's murder spree had 3 confirmed victims. But how many more? Back at Marcus's home, a final hard drive was uncovered. It had been hidden behind a false panel in the attic, inside an old film canister labeled, "The Final Cut." The contents were chilling. The video opened with Marcus sitting in front of the camera, in what seemed like a confession. Only it wasn't an apology. A film is only remembered by its ending. Tragedy is art. People just can't admit it. Then it cut to short clips. Out-of-focus screams. Duct tape. Feet dragging across a floor. And finally, Elaine. In the last known footage of her alive, she pleads to the camera, "If anyone sees this, please tell them I didn't agree to this. This isn't art. He's going to kill me." Her voice cracked. Her eyes, empty. The screen went dark. Then one final whisper from Marcus, "Cut." With the recovered bodies, the trial shifted quickly. On May 4, 2024, Marcus Walker was found guilty on all counts. The judge didn't mince words. "You used the lens not to create but to destroy. You turned art into torture. This court condemns you not as a filmmaker, but as a predator hiding behind performance." Marcus was sentenced to life without parole. But the damage was already done. Elaine's family sobbed as her final video played in court. Alyssa's parents clutched a photograph of their daughter in graduation robes. And still, no one knew who the third victim was. After the trial, police reopened several cold cases involving missing women who had ties to Marcus's past. A student in Boston, who vanished after a summer internship at a film festival Marcus attended. A coffee shop waitress in Louisville, last seen on a date with a man matching his description. An actress from a Craigslist casting call that mysteriously went dead after one shoot. All linked by one common thread: film, cameras, disappearances. Elaine's sister launched a foundation in her honor, the Stop Recording Project, dedicated to victims of voyeuristic abuse and coercion disguised as artistic collaboration. But the fear remained: how many women did Marcus direct into death? And how many more tapes had yet to be found? In the summer of 2025, a documentary crew was granted limited access to Marcus's former home. During filming, a crew member noticed something odd about the baseboards in the downstairs hallway. Loose wiring. Tiny screws. Behind it, another camera. Inside the camera, one last memory card. Its footage remains sealed under court order. But sources close to the investigation say it contains something no one was ready to see: a woman no one could yet identify looking directly into the lens. Her last words? "Please, turn it off." He called it a masterpiece. But what Marcus Walker filmed was no work of fiction. It was a slow, methodical descent into real-life horror. A film with no actors, no scripts, and no second takes. The only thing real was the fear. This wasn't just a murder. It was murder directed frame by frame. And for 3 women, the credits rolled far too soon. "I think there's more footage." That was the sentence that reignited the horror. 2 days after the trial ended in a hung jury, a young digital forensics intern working late at the county lab flagged something unusual. A backup drive that had been dismissed early in the investigation suddenly showed signs of corrupted, hidden files. When decrypted, they uncovered a cache of videos, rough cuts, alternate takes, and most disturbingly, a final sequence marked the ending. The video opened with the same scene: Samantha standing in the living room, visibly shaken. But this time, the footage didn't cut away after she turned to the camera. Instead, it followed her, as she was led into the backyard. She was crying, begging, saying things like, "You don't have to do this," and "The baby doesn't need to see this." That's when everything changed. It wasn't just a filmed murder anymore. It was a scripted production. For nearly 45 minutes, Dean directed the scene with eerie precision. He barked stage directions, gave her lines to repeat, and in some takes he even made her redo her cries. "Sound more afraid," he said. "No one will believe it if you don't scream like you mean it." What was clear from the footage was this: he wanted this to be perfect, cinematic, legendary. The final moments weren't a struggle or a heat-of-the-moment act. They were rehearsed. Time. Lit with studio lights. It sent a chill through the courtroom when prosecutors replayed it during the second trial. Several jurors cried. One had to leave the room. The judge paused the hearing for recess. This wasn't just a man murdering his wife. This was a man crafting her death like an auteur crafts a masterpiece. But the most disturbing discovery came from a frame-by-frame breakdown of the footage. Forensics slowed it to milliseconds and noticed something nearly missed. In the far background, through a tiny reflection in the kitchen glass, there was a child. Their daughter. Watching. She wasn't supposed to be there. Samantha had tried to protect her, to beg Dean to let her stay in her room. But something went wrong. And now the only living witness to her mother's murder was 5 years old. Dean was retried under new charges, including child endangerment, obstruction of justice, and premeditated first-degree murder. This time the footage sealed it. He didn't flinch when the verdict came down, guilty on all counts. His only words to the court were, "I made something unforgettable." He was sentenced to life without parole. But even in prison, Dean's story wasn't over. A documentary filmmaker requested an interview, and for reasons still unknown, the warden granted it. What was meant to be a security-monitored, no-contact interview turned into a media nightmare. Dean sat across the camera and for over 3 hours, spoke about his motivations, calling them pure storytelling. He compared himself to directors like Fincher and Kubrick. He said, "There's beauty in a tragic arc. There's truth in suffering on screen." When the footage aired, public outrage exploded. Victim advocacy groups condemned the network. Online forums erupted. The public couldn't decide what was more horrifying, the act or the narcissism that followed. But the greatest tragedy? The daughter. Now 15 years old, she had grown up in the custody of Samantha's sister under a new name, shielded from the media. But reports surfaced that she struggled with depression, trauma, and vivid nightmares of stage lights and screams. In a letter leaked anonymously to the press, allegedly written by her therapist, she wrote, "Sometimes I dream I'm still in that house. Not just watching but being directed." I think he was making a sequel. Even after Dean's imprisonment, the footage continued to surface, reposted, re-edited, glorified by dark corners of the internet. True crime YouTubers covered the story, often debating the same haunting question. Was Dean ever going to stop at one film? Authorities later revealed that Dean had compiled a list titled Future Projects. It included disturbing notes like, Mother/daughter betrayal arc? Twist ending, she survives, or thinks she does. Staged confession scene, real tears. It was clear, Samantha wasn't going to be the last. She was just the first draft. But here's what still haunts the investigators. Dean never deleted any of the footage. He left it all, accessible, documented, labeled. He wanted to be found. He wanted to be known. He wanted to be watched. We often talk about evil in black and white. A man kills, he goes to prison, justice is served. But what happens when evil is dressed in cinematography? When it hides behind editing software and lens filters? When it's framed, scored, and uploaded with a title card? Dean Warner didn't just commit a murder. He turned it into a masterpiece. And in doing so, he blurred the lines between storyteller and monster. We live in a world where stories shape memory, where footage rewrites truth. But there's a price to documenting horror. Sometimes when the camera stops rolling, the damage keeps playing.